Today's show is brought to you by HelloFresh. Please visit HelloFresh.com and use the promo code TWD to save $35 off your first week of deliveries. Welcome to Watching Dead, the officially unofficial podcast of Walking Dead on AMC. I'm Jim.
I'm Aaron.
And today we're talking about Season 7, Episode 1, called The Day Will Come When You Won't Be. When You Will Not Be?
When You Won't Be.
When You Won't Be. For people who don't know, didn't remember this from 7 years ago, that's a quote from Dr. Jenner, way back in the day when Rick thanks him for taking the bullet on the old CNC. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's a music factory.
Yeah,
they barely escaped from.
When they barely escaped from the CNC Music Factory show. He took the bullet on that one, and Rick told him, thank you very much. He said, I'm grateful. He said, and Jenner says the day will come when you won't be.
Yeah, I actually liked the callback.
Yeah. It feels like an appropriate time for that.
Yeah, and it's just like, yes, it's 6 years ago, but they also know that the really obsessive fans will make that connection. I didn't, but that was like one of the top things on Reddit, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the episode?
I thought it was mostly good. Mostly good. Now, it can't wash away the sins of the finale last season. I think that hurt it a lot, and this maybe needed to be, or at least part of this episode needed to be in the finale from last season, but I'm not super angry about that anymore. I've had 6 months to cool off on that. The biggest problem was not only did I cool off on my outrage, but I cooled off on my emotions for these characters in general. And then they had to spend 20 minutes building me back up. And I don't think it was nearly as powerful as the hour and a half they spent last season getting us to that stage and then just not fulfilling what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree because I thought this was an A+ episode, and I think this had to be an A+ episode because I think there was a lot of people really sharpening their knives and their hatchets ready for The Walking Dead. And
yeah.
Yes, I definitely agree. It wasn't as emotionally powerful. But having said that, it might be because I'm emotionally and mentally exhausted from the con we just got back from. Mm-hmm. But I found myself tearing up at parts at the end, especially seeing Fantasy Glenn bouncing his baby boy on his knee, talking to Abraham at the Mr. Robot style Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
I thought there's a lot of stuff like the Abraham Isaac sacrifice choice, that biblical choice that Negan made Rick do at the end with Carl's arm was really powerful, and I was really, really afraid because I do believe the AMC would absolutely, or the Gimple and Kirkman would absolutely cut off Carl's arm. So there's a lot of suspense there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that made it mostly good, like I said.
But
I think the deaths for me were almost completely ineffectual. I thought,
oh man,
I thought they really just wasted the moment on those two deaths, and then the thing that did get me, like you said, is the Carl and Rick stuff. I mean. That had me on the edge of my seat. Like, will they, won't they?
Right.
And the fact that they didn't wait 6 months to tell me whether or not they would made it really pay off.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I don't want to harp on this point too much. I thought the deaths were really effective. The fact that they went with the double deaths, I thought was effective. Although, we did speculate that was probably the most likely outcome, but the fact that they did it, and I wonder if they have done the finale last year, if they would have just gone with the Glenn, because I know that's one of Kirkman's regrets, the fact that, he in the comics, Abraham dies shortly before he dies in the TV series, and I know Kirkman said on a couple occasions that he did regret that he killed the one soldier off, before he entered this this military kind of arc where Rick, led this campaign, and then he runs right up against the wall of Negan. But I thought those were effective despite the wait. But I just kept thinking at the end, as moved as I was and as awesome as this was, I was just thinking like, man, what would this show be like? What would the audience be like? What would the fans be like if they had made this episode the finale?
Right.
And then also you just roll that back into like, what if they had done all, like all the missteps The Walking Dead has taken over the years? Like if this show had rolled up to this point, if you take off all those missteps, I mean, this show could have been talked about in the same hushed tones that Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and Mad Men and on all the others are talked about. And people say, oh, that's stupid. I really don't think so. This show's potential and its ceiling was that high. And also, I usually tell people to settle down when they start talking this way. I kind of think there's an outside chance there might be some Emmy talk for Andrew Lincoln and Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
There's some pretty strong contenders out there.
Because with the Emmys doing the one episode submission, this is a powerful episode for them both. And like it's like what Andrew Lincoln does with his snot bubbles and his weeping, I felt was very, very genuine. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan is just fucking amazing as Negan.
Yeah, he is.
The way he knows when to be quiet, the way like I don't miss a single fuck out of Negan's speech. Because it's still profane, it's still irreverent, it's still kind of funny, even though it's terrible.
Yeah.
I thought this episode is exactly what they had to do to get the fan base to settle down in for the rest of the season. It's a damn shame that they couldn't have put this superlative episode on a nice foundation instead of kind of like playing out of a sand trap.
Yeah. I don't know how much more we want to say about the way that they handled this decision in the premiere and the finale.
Yeah.
But we do have a recap to get into if you want to start there.
Hey, right before we get into recap, I wanted to mention, because, it's been a year since, well, not a year, but since last season, since we talked to a lot of you, we're starting a new show that we're really excited about. It's HBO's Westworld. It's another Sunday night show. It's just been so far really stellar, and we're getting a really great reaction. So I feel it's also up a lot of Walking Dead people's alley. There's a lot of it's great looking, a lot of violence, a lot of gruesome stuff happening.
Have to get used to some nudity.
There is some nudity, and they do drop the F words because this is HBO, but there's also a lot of interesting existential questions about what it means to be a human and what it means to be conscious and what ethics and morality look like in this age of dawning artificial intelligence. So if
far, no episodes titled "Here's Not Here."
So if you're looking for something to kind of round out your Sunday night television watching experience, give Westworld a chance and check out our show, Watching Westworld. So when they opened up with the 3-minute preview that we'd already seen, I was kind of scared that because I thought that would have, and so we're launching right into recap. So we hear Rick, he's splashed with blood. He says, "I'm going to kill you." Negan leans in and real quiet. What? I didn't quite catch that. Thought this scene was incredible. And Rick says, not today, not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. And there's this, and Negan confiscates his hatchet and drags him off to the RV and says he's going to be back with Rick, and he may or may not kill them all. I thought that was going to be after the credits, that we would open up with the actual killing that we've been waiting for so long, and I was actually kind of already building up some outrage that they were going to stretch this out even further.
Well, they had a problem on their hands.
Yes.
Because like I said, all of that emotion is gone after 6 months, right? You're not in this frenzied state. You're not worried about these characters. You're just getting back into the swing, so they have to give you some time to do that.
Back in the swing.
And what, you didn't like my joke? But yeah, they had to give you some time, so they needed some build up, and I think that was the right move. It still didn't land quite as effectively as for me as it would have if they had done it last season.
Midway through the RV sequence with the hatchet on the roof, I started to appreciate that exactly. That's what they were doing. They were digging them. They're hacking their way out of the sand trap, and they needed to do that.
Right. Now I can tell you, if they had waited much longer, I would have been complaining again. They did hit a good balance of build up versus prolonging the inevitable.
Right. So Negan goes into the RV, throws Rick to the ground, buries the axe in the table, and says, "Let's go for a ride." struggles to start the RV because, of course, Dale's not there.
Right. I love that all the RVs in this world are just pieces of shit.
Sure.
That's true of all television, though.
Yeah. And Negan is inviting Rick to essentially try another round of resistance. And he invites him. He's looking in rearview mirrors like, this is your best shot. The back's turned. Of course, Rick takes the bat, and instantly Negan turns on him with a semi-automatic rifle of some sort. Hits him in the stomach, and then uses the flat head of the axe to concuss the shit out of him. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought they really sold that impact and how disorientated Rick was with the rest of the scene. And he says, think about, there's a new dawn breaking. Think about what's happened and what can still happen, and they drive off. This next scene where they're driving through the fog, and Negan is splattering walkers on the windshield.
How is it so foggy? How is it so... And if it is so foggy, how is he driving so fast?
Because he just doesn't give... he doesn't give a fuck. Rule of cool, I'm going to allow this because I thought the visuals were really fucking cool.
I thought he had, magic busted up and he was driving through the clouds or something. Like Magic School busted. Or,
Sure.
he had shrunk down and was driving through a smoker's lungs.
Sure. I don't know. I guess because I'm from the Midwest, and I know you don't get up as early as I do, but it's not infrequent that you get fog in the morning, especially in the fall, where it kind of feel we are. I actually have no fucking clue. I have no fucking clue what time of year we are, but it feels like the fall. So I'm gonna say it's the fall.
I think it's fall. Yeah.
All right. But I thought it was good. It was a good character building moment. It was just visually interesting, and he's laughing. Oh, remind you of someone when their heads get exploded. And there's also this kind of effective thing where what I assumed were the survivors, but it's actually Rick recollecting all the memories he has of these people because he's doing this thing. He's thinking about what can still happen. And we see Rosita and Glenn and some memories of them.
Which I thought they actually should have used as a preview for this season. That 3-minute clip that they released was good.
Also they had the Eeny Meeny, which I thought was pretty effective.
Oh, right.
Where they used...
But they didn't, show everybody getting bashed. I thought they should have showed them all getting bashed.
Yeah. Especially since they had the footage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
they were going to film it for this anyway.
I also thought it was pretty ingenious, the fact that they went and filmed the deaths of everyone just to confound the spoiler hounds. Now, I think it turns out that there's a cup that the Spoiling Dead fans probably had it 100% right, and that's why AMC cease and desisted them preemptively.
Yeah.
But still, nice touch. Nice touch.
I also think Rick probably could have got the jump on Negan while he was driving.
I do, but I think you got to remember that he had just gotten bashed over the head with a fucking hatchet.
Right.
And I think his bell was fucking rung.
And the other thing is, think about what could happen. And let's say he does kill Negan here, right? And he
Right.
drives back into that ring of dudes with the RV and says, I killed your leader.
Right.
Well, they're still going to all die.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think this episode, I was doing the whole time, I was thinking, at what point do you break?
Right.
Because you can see, there's a scene especially where during the Eeny, Meeny, Miny scene where they just really tight on Lincoln's face, and you can see him as Rick just trying to calculate the angles. We've seen him bite a man's throat out. We've seen him have his soldiers get the jump on people. We've seen him always come through the odds, and his mind is racing to try to see where the angle is. Where is his play?
Yeah.
And there was nothing.
Just too much force. Yeah.
And I think you had that plus the fact that his head is probably from the axe swing. And I don't think he could. Yeah, that's probably the best shot he had. But then where does he get him? So
yeah, where does he go from there?
Right. So he gives this little speech when he gets to where he's going, and he says, "You are mine. All your people are mine. This axe is mine." And I first thought he threw it out the door, and I was about to call some bullshit on the physics, but on further review, it seems pretty clear that they were they showed Negan throwing it up on the roof.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he says, "Go out there and get the axe," and they establish that they're in a piss pot full of walkers
and fog.
And he throws Rick out the fucking door, and we have we see that so there's more memories of Sasha, Eugene, and Aaron, and Abraham, and Maggie, and Daryl, and we're back at the giant pile of logs that the Saviors had formed into a barricade last season, and it looks like it's been exploded.
All right.
I'm not as sure. I'm not as sure exactly what the point of that was. Whether there was a bunch of walkers in that pen and they blew it open, or maybe that the giant explosion brought all the walkers to, and the resulting fire brought all the walkers there. But regardless, Rick fights his way to the top of the RV. Sees the guy that was hung for his disobedience last year. That paid off pretty handsomely, I thought.
Yeah, that was cool. It's going to continue to pay off in the next few scenes.
Yep, and again, Rick, they really show him remembering with his people and thinking about Michonne, the people that are most important to him. They go back and revisit the eeny, meeny, miny scene, and it's just, the point of this is how in control Negan is, right? That Rick is trying to figure out an angle and he can't. He selects Abraham. And what I thought was interesting is, do you think that Abraham was a random selection, or do you think that was an intentional, calculated move by Negan? Because in the comic books, they made it pretty clear that he was just eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But this, he skipped around, he reversed, he skipped a whole bunch of words, and as the bat was falling in front of everybody was focusing on the bat and shitting their pants. Abraham was locked in,
right? And
I wonder if Negan's this is the one guy who is going to be. There's no way I can break him. Rick has got his son. I can apply some pressure to, but Abraham is going to spit in my face and never compromise.
But you got Sasha.
He can apply pressure. Does he know that?
No, of course Negan wouldn't know that.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I guess it doesn't matter.
Right.
Now that he's dead.
No. I just thought it's I was trying to glean something from the personality. I thought it was a strategic move.
He was certainly the most defiant, even more so than Daryl, I'd say, yeah.
And when I remember, I know we made fun of Abraham flashing a peace sign to Sasha, but it did pay off a bit in this episode because as Negan made his selection, Abraham flashed it to her one last time to kind of say, I don't know, I'm accepting of this, or everything's going to be okay.
Suck my nuts.
Yeah, and Abraham,
pretty good.
Abraham died like he lived, spouting AMC safe versions of adult language.
Oh yeah, you couldn't have Abraham go out without one.
Right. And
he lived like he died.
He did.
He died like he lived, whatever it is.
Mother dick. He mother dick to the end. And Negan beats the complete shit out of him.
Yeah.
And Daryl gets pissed off when he starts taunting Rosita and takes a swing at him, and Negan shuts all this shit down. Dwight offers to kill him with his own crossbow. I was not afraid for Daryl. Once Abraham was selected, I thought, nope, Daryl's going to be safe. And Negan says, nope, that's not how it works. Someone else has got to be punished. And then he just beats Glenn to death. And Jesus Christ, this scene is straight out of the comics, and it is fucking brutal.
Yep. Your eyeball just pops out, and it is gross as shit.
Yeah, it
was, man.
It and I felt bad. There's very few times, I guess I got desensitized to the gore, but the fact that I kind of care about Glenn and Maggie, even though they've kind of jerked us around. I'm surprised at how much I was affected with the death of Glenn, even though they had just jerked us around the dumpster. And there's a lot of jokes on some of the discussion threads about, you think Glenn's hiding under the bat? Was he able to roll under the RV?
Rolled under his own eyeball?
Did Morgan swoop in and swap his body out with a walker before Negan got the swing on him? But
maybe.
Yeah, he just beats the shit, and I liked how they keyed on Daryl and Maggie's reaction, not just Maggie, or not just Maggie, but also Daryl, because it's arguable that this is kind of Daryl's fault. Well, it's not arguable.
I don't even think it's arguable. Yeah. I don't think you can argue against it.
And one of the reasons this is an A+ episode is because it sets up some genuine drama, like Daryl being conscripted into Negan's army. And he's got so much fucking leverage. We know how emotionally kind of damaged and vulnerable Daryl is anyway, and how he can easily get into kind of don't give a fuck mercenary mode if when he got with the Claimers. And here he's going to be just stewing in this pot full of guilt and Negan brainwashing and God, I'm really interested to see where they go with this.
And from the other side of it too. I mean, our group, the survivors, have to kind of capitulate to Negan here because they've got Daryl, and he threatens Daryl's parts. He's gonna start chopping if Rick doesn't give him what he wants. So
yeah, it's a really neat trap that they've
there
laid
might
for the heroes here.
What if there's like another governor style raid thing where they try and go in after Daryl to save him?
I mean, the thing
they've
is,
done this once,
and this I felt like the finale last year established a fact, and Rick reiterates it that Negan had an army. They just severely misunderestimated.
Right.
They didn't think that underestimated him. They didn't think that there could be an apocalyptic group of badasses as big as them and well organized as them, because they took it as a matter of faith that anyone that could be as well organized as them would have the same kind of esprit de corps, the same kind of morals and values, because they'd seen so many other selfish, tyrannical regimes tear themselves apart from the inside.
right?
But they didn't know that there was a leader like Negan out there. And, that's the brilliant part of this arc of the series, is that it's all about, Rick finally has met his match, and what the fuck is he going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, Negan is willing to kill and intimidate and lead with fear. I don't know if he's going to bring anything else to the table, but he seems to be a saner version of the governor,
Which is
and a more malicious version of the governor too. Because
Right.
the governor, on the face of it, if he wasn't crazy, might have actually had a good thing going in Woodbury.
Sure.
I mean, if he wasn't killing his own people,
Right.
the other people in the town were happy.
Yeah, Matt. So like Negan, and that's the thing. Like, yes, Negan is brutal, but also, if we take him at his word here, that he honors his word, and he's if you work for him and you do good work. I mean, we haven't really seen what kind of suffering. We've heard from the hilltop that there's some people to grumble about, that he takes too much and whatnot. But on the other end, the hilltop is effective, is functioning. No one was starving. I think there's a question of like maybe Negan's the type of guy that you need in this world. Like, I wouldn't fucking vote for him,
Right.
but he wouldn't ask for my vote.
Well, no, definitely not.
And also, was this the road that Rick was heading down?
I don't know.
Because
if
kind of-
Alexandria doesn't get blown to pieces
Yeah, but
by
think
walkers.
about the way they treated the hilltop. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that he's exactly the same as Negan, but him and Maggie essentially extorted them. It's a mafia-style protection ring that they had established.
That's true.
And how much different is what Negan is offering than Rick?
Well, I don't know what Negan is offering. Negan is demanding tribute so far. I don't know what he actually gives the hilltop.
Right.
Because it didn't seem like he gave them anything. He just took 50% of everything they had.
I mean, I guess he protects them from people like himself. He protects them from
suppose.
walkers. Like, he also just doesn't I have an army big enough that I can just destroy you guys, but I'd rather have you earning things for me. I'd rather have you providing for me. I mean, like I said, it's a straight up mafia style extortion ring.
Oh yeah.
But it's also kind of what, I guess Rick was trying to set up a kinder, gentler one. Would he have succeeded? I don't know. Anyway, so Rick is in a bad way. We're back in the present, and he is trying to get this axe, and he's fought his way on top of the RV, and he's been laying there thinking about his fate for a while. And Negan's getting impatient, and he starts shooting up the RV, and Rick is forced to jump onto the hanging zombie, and he's not exactly a rock in a hard place. It's more like a crowd of teeth in a toothy place. He's got the one zombie swinging from the chain trying to bite down. He's got a whole horde of zombies trying to bite up. And Negan opens up the rear window and starts shooting the zombies. He's like kind of giving a little level playing field. In the confusion, Rick loses the the axe, the hatchet somewhere in the woods. Negan, again, clears the crowd a bit, says the clock's ticking. Think about what you have to lose. Rick then climbs into or crawls through the forest, finds the axe, almost gets bit by the swinging zombie's head, because by this time I forgot to mention that his weight had pulled the head right off of that zombie.
Yep. Pretty disgusting. Pretty cool.
He tries to fight his way to the door, but the door is locked because Negan is that kind of asshole. And he's having these final thoughts of his people being beat to death by Negan's bat swimming through his head as Negan opens the door and assists him one last time and lets him in and says, "Attaboy." They have another long monologue where Negan says, "I know it's hard for you, that you've been this," he calls him king shit for so long, and now you just got neutered in front of your son, but you can still lead a nice, productive life producing for me. And he cleans off his hatchet and gives it back to Rick.
So real quick, before Rick gets it back into the RV, he has an encounter with a couple of zombies. First of all, we were at Rocket City NerdCon this weekend, and we talked with Chris Harrison, who
Harrelson,
is,
like Woody.
Yes, is one of the featured zombies in The Walking Dead. He's played a whole bunch of them. He plays one in this episode. And
Two. He told me he played 2 featured zombies in this episode.
I thought it was one in the first 2 episodes.
Oh,
each,
maybe
but,
that's right. But
he said he's underneath Rick when he's swinging from that zombie and he's getting kicked.
Oh, okay. Because he did when I was
there.
talking to him. I said, "I bet I can pick now that I've met you and your physicality. I bet I can pick it out." He's like, "Good luck," because with the fog and confusion and all that stuff, I don't know.
And then there's the grossest zombie maybe that I've seen yet, which is where Rick grabs the one by the neck and it just bubbles out this disgusting green ooze.
The pus bubble, the boil, pus boil zombie.
And it's so disgusting that Rick's got to he looks down at his hand and shakes off the goo.
Sure.
And
a man fighting for his life has the moment to be grossed out by what he just stuck his hand in.
Right, that's pretty gross.
Pretty fucking, especially this man.
Yeah.
I thought Rick's face when he accepts the axe was just beautiful, and I'm thinking, because this was a long episode, and because I was watching it on a DVR, and I was kind of fast forwarding through the commercials.
45 minutes on Amazon.
Was it? I thought it was like an hour and a half. Actual runtime.
No,
was
God,
it?
no.
Okay. I was fast forwarding, and I was wondering, I was like, man.
Unless I didn't watch half of it.
I wonder. Well, we're about to say this isn't the end of the episode.
No.
I was wondering if Negan was going to pick up on the fact that Rick really hasn't learned his lesson. 2 people in, Rick is still plotting murder and deception and rebellion in his eyes. So Rick's back. He is being drugged from the RV, and I thought it was also the physicality of his performances. Rick is trying to get back to his, up to his feet the entire time. He wants to walk back to his people to show them that he is not unbent, and he's not unbent. He is actually unbent, unbowed, unbroken, much like the Dornish people. And he says, "Do you know what this trip is about? I wanted you to understand who's in charge, but you're still looking at me like I shit in your scrambled eggs." And he says, "Do I give you another chance?" And Rick says, "Yes, you should." So he grabs Carl out of the crowd. It has all of his men point guns at the rest of the people's heads, belts Carl's arm, calls for a pin, marks a line on it, and tells Rick, "Right here, right now, cut off your son's left arm.
Make it like a salami slice.
Believe it.
Because we're going to fold it over and
yep,
maybe he'll live."
And I mean, I'm going through this really quickly because I know we probably have lots of feedback. I want to leave time for it, but just the performance that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's given on Negan is just amazing, because he's like, I know this is going to take a while for you to process. I'm not going to do the movie villain cliche of just like, you do it now, but then also you're not talking your way out of it. This is going to happen. And Michonne tries to bargain for his life, and Negan says, yeah, I know, I've got your attention. It's this guy I'm worried about.
Right.
And then Rick tries to bargain. He tries to plead. He got the snot bubble coming out of his nose. And then that's when Negan knows he has him. And he's about to, he realizes there's no way out. He raises the axe, and then Negan, kind of like a Jehovah in the Old Testament, stops Abraham from sacrificing Isaac and saying, "All right, I got you. This is the look. The snot bubble is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see utter despair. That, I've broken you, and that we've all come together." And he's tries to do this oddly inspirational thing, like, it's a new day, and we've made some progress, and I'm taking Daryl as kind of a hostage/soldier. Lays out that if you betray him, I'm going to cut pieces of him and mail him to your doorstep, or better yet, call you back to my base and have you do it. And he says, I'll be back in 1 week for a first offering, and throws Rick his hatchet and says, ta-ta.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to talk about in this?
I don't know. Negan's an interesting character to me because, like, you think, okay, how did he build the army that he's built, right? I mean, a guy like this, he either has been extremely lucky in that every group he's found has been smaller than the group he currently has.
Which I buy.
The army he currently has. Well, I don't mean currently, but like at every step of the road, right? Like, so Negan's a dude, and he's out on the road, and he finds a couple of other dudes who are like-minded, and then they run across one other person, and he can intimidate and brutalize them into helping him, to being his follower. So and then he gradually like builds this thing, or he started out with a big army, which is possible, I suppose.
Yeah, I feel like there's, this is kind of like the moon formation hypothesis, like no one's exactly sure, but we can come up with some educated guesses, right? Because I thought about this too, and I'm wondering, I could see two ways. I could see Negan having like a core group of guys, and they're like these post-apocalyptic badasses, and say they met a group like the Claimers.
Right.
And he's able to take out Joe, and he just gets lucky that one time. And the Claimers probably like, well, shit, this guy's fucking crazier than Joe was, and he's going to let us rape and pillage, so let's follow him. Now, like, he becomes a snowball. The other way I thought it might go is, like, say that he was already in a large kind of group of marauders, and he thought, he saw that, like, he was with a guy like Joe, or maybe like the Wolves, where their goals were just kind of stupid and silly, and he had the idea that, he's, instead of just mindlessly raping and pillaging, we're going to find we're the Wolves, we're going to find the sheep, and we're just going to fucking fleece them. And we're going to come back, and we're just going to keep shearing and why shear him once? Why kill him and shear him once when you can just shear him again and again and again? And that was kind of the brilliant idea that he had to kind of take that group over and refocus it.
Right. It just makes me wonder, like, if Negan at some stage when he didn't have a huge army, potentially, had come across like a governor type guy, well, then he'd have a real fight on his hands, right? He wouldn't just be able to overpower them and force them to do his bidding. He'd actually have to put up a fight.
It does seem... So I feel like that's the thing about Negan that I've never... And why I think Negan is the best villain The Walking Dead's had to this point, is that he does seem like he's got layers. He's got different gears. He's not exactly a psychopath. He's doing these things, these psychological things, for an effect and for an impact. And he knows that he's got different carrots and different sticks for different people. And, like... The flashback to the governor's backstory I thought was dumb and pointless. I actually could use a 3 or 4 episode flashback to Negan's rise to power, because I think that would be interesting.
I think so,
because he's more impressive, he's more intimidating, he's more calculating. I would love to know exactly how this guy came to power.
Or maybe he's changed over the years. Maybe he started out as a guy who was gathering people who just wanted to live together peacefully. And over the years, he's realized that's not enough, and now fear is the way that he rules.
And I'd also like to see how they flesh him out, to see if there's going to... Because I stopped rereading. I was, up until about 2 seasons ago, rereading the arcs right before we do the series, and it just was driving me crazy, because they just make these small alterations, and it bugged me. So I haven't actually read Negan's arc in probably 5 years. But I wonder how they're going to flesh him out. Like, there's Negan in his private moments, and I wonder if that's why Daryl's going with him, because we get a true POV character in his camp. I wonder if he sees this as kind of... if everybody was like the Ricks of the world, or if everybody's like the Joes or the Governors, humanity would die out. Like, I am the leader that the world needs to reboot, because he's kind of rebooting civilization. He's this warlord that is protecting these pockets of civilization and giving them the leadership that they need. And, they're not... Because look at, what happened at the prison. Look at what happened at Woodbury. Look at what happened at the Slabtown Hospital. Look what happened to Alexandria. Like, that shit kind of threatens to tear itself apart because of weak, ineffectual leadership. And I am the strong leader that is going to make sure that the humanity doesn't die out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that might be what you need in the apocalyptic world.
And also, I think, maybe the other thing we're supposed to understand is that Negan's backstory is essentially Rick's backstory. It's just one he had, maybe a little bit more loss or maybe a little bit more cynical He didn't have the thing where he could, that he never lost the hope that we could have everybody sitting around a supper table in old age and celebrating Thanksgiving.
Never ran into a Deanna.
Yeah.
Or anybody like that.
He didn't have the crucial barley equals intellect equation.
Right.
That would allow you to reboot civilization in a kinder, gentler way. So then pretty much all we have left is reactions. We get a lot of extended Emmy takes for people trying to come to grips with this.
Can I say I don't think I like Lauren Cohan's performance here?
Okay. Explain.
It just... There's something about it I just didn't feel.
She's doing a lot. She's trying to portray a pregnant woman.
A lot.
She's trying to portray a pregnant woman who's on death's door. She's trying to portray someone who is, because if Daryl's most to blame for Glenn's death, I think that what she's done that's kind of interesting here is, or what they did last season is interesting, is that Maggie was the one who kind of was the godfather. She's the one that made this deal with the Hilltop in the first place. I will take care of the saviors in return for, you providing us the good stuff.
And they're on the road because of her.
Road because of her.
Yeah.
I mean, in the micro and macro, she is kind of the most to blame for what is happening right now.
I'm not saying it was an easy performance to pull off, or that she flopped. I'm just saying there was something about it I just didn't connect with.
You think it's on her, the director? Because I will say that we have got a body of evidence where there has been occasions that we have not been exactly satisfied. Now, we've made a lot of excuses, like Beth's death. What the fuck do you do?
Right.
They kind of fucked up the whole plot line, and they fucked up the whole. They never really had Maggie worrying about her, and then I
never had a problem with her performance there. I liked her performance. I just didn't think it was the right time.
And it didn't.
I felt like it came way too late.
It was lacking the foundation
unearned.
it needed. Yeah. So I guess we could have a discussion about whether maybe she's just not as good as we wanted her to be.
I don't know.
Do we always have a crush on Maggie, and we were giving her passes on some of these questionable acting choices? I honestly don't know where I stand with her.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I definitely always had a crush on Maggie, but
sure. Well, who didn't?
I hope that didn't cloud my judgment too much.
Well, it's happened to better men than you. It's happened
true.
to better men than you. But I think you're right. I mean, there was a lot going on, and I think that actually the ensemble cast kind of helped her for me because she's wanting to do this thing. She's wanting to not she's having this overreaction to this stimulus, and she wants to go her own path so she can not be responsible for anyone else's death, and she wants to take care of Glenn. And I thought that Aaron and Rick make the case that you need to do this yourself. Well, we need to help you. Mm-hmm. And there's more of us than there are of you.
Yeah, and I thought, Andrew Lincoln just destroys. He chews up this episode and shits it out. Not in a bad way. I mean,
that's the thing.
In the best way possible.
Like him and Jeffrey Dean Morgan are playing King of the Hill, and everybody else just got pushed to the bottom.
Right. It's tough to play opposite those two guys in this episode because, man, they nail it.
Yep.
I did feel like they put an appropriate amount of sorrow into Sasha. It was interesting because Rosita actually felt it the most, which makes a lot of sense because, she loved Abraham, and Sasha is just kind of getting to know Abraham, in as much as they've had a few episodes together and a road trip and a peace sign or two.
Right.
They weren't super connected, right? It was always Abraham kind of pushing this thing on her, and she started to come around to it, but I don't feel like they were madly in love like Rosita was with Abraham. So her being not as broken up as Rosita, but still, bummed out, and really felt true.
And asserting that Abraham, almost I came away just super fucking impressed with Rosita. Yeah. She's been such an adult and so mature about this whole thing that because she could easily Sasha essentially asserted this is what Abraham would have wanted for me to have him. And Rosita, you could see that that was a hard thing for her to swallow. But like I said, goddamn, and Rosita's becoming one of my favorites. She is a fucking rock, man.
I did like the moment where they both kind of have their hand on Abraham's body, on each other's hands too, and they pull away and lift him up, but. Yeah, that was a pretty good moment for them.
What did you think about the imaginary Thanksgiving dinner? Because that's where it actually
felt
finally.
a little weird. I don't know.
I felt lumps in my throat, but when they focused on Glenn and his son, and then him and Abraham kind of sitting and like smiling at each other, and they were both happy, and that's not going to happen. Like I even turned to Cecily and said, I can't fucking believe this show is doing this to me. This show, it's not fair. This show didn't earn this. This show has not. This is taking advantage of my weakened state and my sentimentality for father and son relationships.
Yep.
And
So it was strange to me because Morgan and his wife were there. His wife, who Rick knows is dead and could never have had a future with Morgan.
You know who wasn't there? T-Dog wasn't fucking there.
Oh, seriously?
Right. Like that's
I
the
didn't
thing.
see like the
well,
end of the
who
table.
knows? Maybe there was
camera,
a table going off into infinity.
There's
and
the
we didn't
kids'
see
table.
that.
Is there like
T-Dog's at the kids' table going,
what's
what
her name?
the
Lizzie
fuck?
and Mika and T-Dog's over at that table.
Yeah, like just staring daggers. And I thought that's the thing. It's like, man, if you're going to go a fantasy sequence, and I guess it's probably scheduling and can you get these guys back and all that stuff. But if you're going to do a fantasy sequence and include dead people, then maybe
no Dale. Was Dale there?
No, there's no way they're going to get
Dale. He's not coming back.
No, he'll come back. If Darabont was at the table, he'd come back.
Right. No Shane, I imagine.
No.
Rick probably wouldn't want to see Shane there.
No, I mean I get it. Like it's. I'm being mostly an asshole with that, but I thought it would have been a pure thing if nobody that couldn't have been there, absent the decisions made that day and the actions that day, would have been there. But
yeah,
I thought they muddied the water a little bit with Morgan's wife.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then there was an odd scene of the lone zombie, which I thought they were trying to make the point of just, if you haven't been paying attention, zombies aren't the main attraction anymore. Mm-hmm. They are not the main threat. They're just kind of sideshows. But then they had the interesting choices as Rick pulls away, having it just fall to the ground to lick up the blood.
Yeah.
The fresh blood on the ground. What, if anything, were they trying to say with that?
I really couldn't tell you. I didn't get it, other than maybe just like, hey, we need a little bit of zombie action at the end here.
I wonder if also they were like, these were I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring back the Jenner scene at the end, because I wonder, like, if Rick was thinking, I wish the zombies are the ones that have it easy because they just walk and kill and they're not emotionally affected and they do what they need to survive and they don't have to feel anything. And I have all this pain, like. Why doesn't Rick just put a gun in his mouth and pull the trigger at this point?
Carl, I guess.
Probably, knowing the fact that might actually piss Negan off him enough that he would go kill everybody. I mean,
maybe.
I feel like. So, what is Negan's weakness? I feel like Negan's weakness is the fact that he's a businessman. He is, yes, he's ruthless, yes, he's cruel, but he's got some calculations that he doesn't want to kill everything in Alexandria because his crew needs. They need the food, they need the medical supplies, they need the ammunition, they need the stuff that these people find and produce to survive. Mm-hmm. And if he kills all of the settlements, then he doesn't, then his men will have to, like you said, you need a right-hand man, because if you don't, you got to do too much work.
Right.
So I wonder if that's going to be his weakness, the fact that Rick is going to decide that, there are a few things he can get away with just because Negan isn't willing to do away with them.
Yeah, he was pretty easily able, or Maggie had a big hand in this, but they were pretty easily able to convince the Hilltop to turn to their side, right? If they could do that for more and more of Negan's colonies, right. I assume there were more, maybe that would erode his power enough that, and he wouldn't be able to take them out, like you said, because he needs the supplies. That might actually gain him some leverage.
What do you think of Maggie's initial reaction that they need to go and get people and get everybody ready to go kill? I mean, was that...
It's anger. I mean, I understand the mentality, the sentiment. I was surprised that more characters didn't feel that way.
I wasn't. I thought that... I was trying to, because, again, she was doing a lot, and I was trying to figure out exactly what they're trying to do with her character, and she just seemed like she had... nowhere to go, nowhere to deal with this stuff. I guess I felt like if I was in that situation, I'd probably be completely cowed. I'd be shitting my pants and like, man, we need to straighten up and fly right.
Right.
The jury is now in. We are not the biggest badasses. We need to get our.
But they've got Enid and Gabriel and little baby ass kicker back there.
Right. Yeah, and we need to get them tending the barley
Just go
fields
mount
because
up.
that's our play. Just keep the barley coming, and we'll be fine. Keep the barley going, and we'll be fine. Oh boy! And they end on Rick's eyes, and I was looking for what was going on there. Was
look.
there defiance? Was there despair? Was there and was there? I was thinking that like at the end they might tighten up a bit to show that there hasn't all the fire gone out. But I thought that my final analysis after watching it a couple times is that this is just a beaten man.
Yeah, it really did feel like it. I don't think there was any defiance left.
All right. So that's the episode. Again, I thought it was the episode that they had to deliver, which is some kind of shows a little bit of improvement from the previous seasons. Is that a lot of times we've said that they've had to have a good episode at a particular time to really, keep disaster from happening, and a lot of times they haven't done it. I felt like they did deliver what they had to do based on the situation they put themselves in the previous season. Also, do we have any feedback about the foreshadowing that's gone on in the Glenn's death?
With the dumpster?
No, not the dumpster. With the fact that we've seen a lot of imagery of, him taking pictures and him wielding baseball bats and holding baseball bats and being menaced by baseball bats, like going back to the Terminus arc is when they first started doing this. And I thought that's, I got to give it to Gimple. I think that sometimes he's sloppy, sometimes he's unfocused, sometimes these plots are flabby. But I do think that despite everything, he has put just enough emotion and just enough planning into, like the gesture, like having Abraham doing the peace sign. Mm-hmm. Maybe they should have come up with something different that wouldn't have been as goofy or been more to his character. But that little callback was pretty effective and did that was one of the things that ramped up the emotion enough that they almost got a begrudging tear out of me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with that other than I think that
it was definitely foreshadowed. I mean, for all the comic book fans who knew that that's how it goes down in the comics, that Glenn does in fact get the bat, it was definitely foreshadowed many a time. And I think we've talked about those in previous episodes when it has happened in the spoiler sections.
Right. The other thing about Maggie, and we're talking about Lauren Cohen and whether she's doing a good job. Is Maggie the most tortured individual at this point? She's seen her sister die, her brother die, her father die, her husband die, all before her very eyes, essentially.
Her mother die? I mean,
well, yeah,
wasn't her
going
mom
back
out in
to
the barn?
the Doodlebug days, sure.
Yeah, she's had it rough.
I mean, is there anyone that's lost more? Like, I feel like that maybe that's part of the, like, how do you play a character who has seen this much horror at this stage?
Well, I mean, Carl's seen a lot of horror, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, he's seen a lot of
people directly
die.
participated in horror. I mean, he had to cut the baby out of his mom.
So that's pretty bad.
That's pretty traumatic.
As he is.
Yeah.
But it was just his mom, and she was Lori Grimes, so.
True. Yeah, Maggie might be the most
I'm trying
tortured.
to think if in the Pain Olympics if there's anybody with more gold medals than she has.
I don't think so.
Okay. Because that's the other thing I was
gold.
I was trying to grade on his curve is like, man, how the hell do you play? Like, I kind of from this point forward, of course she's now like I guess going to have a baby, and then that kind of resets. But like if she loses this baby,
Yeah.
I want to see her as a fucking Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing that can get to her.
Yeah, who's Sasha lost? Her brother, a couple friends.
A proto love interest.
Yeah, not that much.
Yeah.
Gabriel lost his whole congregation, although
Oh,
he did it to himself.
he didn't lose it. He threw the congregation out. It's like you don't lose your car keys if you flush them down the toilet. He just made poor decisions.
He would say he lost them.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah, probably Maggie.
All right.
Can we talk about foreshadowing a little bit, because there's
Please.
the hand chopping stuff going on in here, and we have long talked about how in the first season of the comic books, in very early on in the comic books, Rick gets his hand chopped off, and how Robert Kirkman has said that is the biggest mistake he made in the comics for that character. there was so much playing with that idea in this episode between, like, even when they just mention the hatchet at the beginning.
Oh, sure.
They're already starting in on it.
Fans are abuzz.
Right. There's all that he drags him to the RV, and you think, okay, maybe he's going to take his hand. He several times threatens to, and
I
then
kept
he
on
eventually
thinking
threatens
that, like,
Carl.
there's no fucking way. But yeah, continue.
Well, I was, even when he drew this fucking line on Carl's arm and it started counting down, I was like, there's no way they're going to do this, because I know that Kirkman didn't want to do this. And I was like 80% sure it wouldn't happen. And then it ultimately didn't happen.
Okay.
Do you think, I mean, how do you think that played as far as you're concerned?
I thought I was more 50-50 because I was going through my head the math of, like, okay, I don't think they do it with Rick because there's so much green screening involved, but Carl, who's a secondary character, I mean, I know he's one of the primary characters, and Kirkman has said that Walking Dead is really going to be, once I tell the entire story, you'll appreciate that this has been Carl's story, not Rick's story,
and that's solidified my stance.
But I was thinking, it's like, well, maybe you could do that with the green sock, and maybe he's like, you know, maybe he'll be like a John Connor stock, because, you know, of course, this is not just as me fan theorying. This is not like my certain knowledge, but maybe he intends him to be more of a John Connor, where his mind and leadership is what he's not as much of a physical badass and a madman as his father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I could see, I guess, where he. So I was processing all that, and then it turns out it didn't happen. But no, I thought it was actually brilliant that he did it. And plus, I also think the other wild card is I don't know that Kirkman and Gimple and Nicotero are, even though just because it's a bad idea doesn't mean they won't do it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, somehow
Sure.
the fact that they tend to, like, they're the type of guys that would see the signs outside the airport that says severe tire damage ahead, don't back over this strip, and be like, fuck it, reverse. You know, they kind of do that on this show
sometimes. Yeah.
And and maybe it's like because they've heard like Vince Gilligan say, "Oh, I like to paint this into a quarter and not know how to get out, and then that's our challenge for next season." They're like, "Oh, fuck it."
Right.
You know, we're going to do an extreme version of that, but they're just enough got that you fucking madmen aspect of their writing and the way they run the show that's the other thing meta that was going through my mind.
Okay, I could see that.
Is this a discussion we should have in the spoiler section of BT Dubs?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I at this point I don't think they're ever going to cut Rick's arm off. Or any
no, I don't think they're going to cut an arm off. Period. Because like when they started to do Carl, it solidified it for me that they weren't going to cut his arm off because, like you said, Kirkman views Carl as the main character. I think Chandler Riggs probably has a longer life on this show than Andrew Lincoln does. I think if either of them are going to go, it's Andrew Lincoln first.
Yeah,
he's A, way more expensive,
sure,
and he's B, older.
Right.
And if he's not the main character of this story in the creator's eyes, why would he kill off what he views as the main character?
Yeah, but
so when they said cut off Carl's arm, I heard that, and I heard Kirkman saying that he's the main character. I heard Kirkman saying, I can't believe I cut Rick's hand off because that was a big mistake.
Right.
There's no way they're going to cut the main character's hand off.
And you're right.
And in perpetuity going forward,
you were
he's
right.
going to be disfigured.
You were right, but I for my part thought there's just enough of them just being madmen that might happen.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because I've definitely seen them make questionable decisions and with much less payoff too. That's the thing. Like I've seen them do way bigger mistakes and missteps and handicaps than that with way less emotional devastation payoff too.
Right.
Do you think that I also couldn't help but think that maybe that was a glimmer of a chink in Negan's armor, the fact that he did pull the Abraham, the Old Testament Abraham, and didn't make Rick go through it.
I don't know. It's interesting because I think that gives Abraham leverage in the future. Because if he makes him cut Carl's arm off,
Negan,
yeah,
because you're now saying Abraham.
I said Abraham leverage?
Yeah, you did.
That gives Abraham a lot of Negan leverage in the future because he
But what's Isaac going to say?
He can always go back to that well, right? Like It might have driven Rick over the edge. He might have just flipped.
Making him confront the reality and knowing that there's nothing, like, I've still got my foot on my boot on your throat, and this can happen at any time, and it can happen with Daryl, or it can happen with your son, or or worse yet, I can make your son cut pieces off of Daryl, or Daryl cut pieces off your son. Yeah. Like, I can do this at any time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it
gives him a little taste of what it could be to come if he doesn't listen.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Whereas it might have just driven Rick right over the edge, and Rick jumps up, bites his throat out, and everyone's dead.
Right? Yeah, he just goes the nuclear option at that point.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we ready for feedback?
Yes.
So before we get to feedback, we have a new sponsor to talk about that I am personally pretty excited for. It's a company called HelloFresh, and if you're not familiar with HelloFresh, they're a company that wants to change the way that people eat forever, basically by delivering easy-to-cook, convenient meals that are great tasting and nutritious to your door. Keeps you from having to go out to the store, spending endless hours. Like, it always takes me forever to prepare like a shopping list because I have to look up a recipe. I got to figure out, okay, it's always for like 18 people or something that you're trying to cook. Like, buy 8 pounds of pork loin or something. And I'm like, well, how do I convert that to something I can eat with me and my girlfriend? And it's like an hour before I figured out what recipe I want to cook and how to cook it. And then I got to go to the store and shop. Well, HelloFresh makes it super easy because they box all that shit up in 2-person or 4-person meal plans.
I think when you said shit, you meant to say great tasting and nutritious food.
It's a colloquialism. They're boxing that shit up and they're sending it to you.
Shit can mean so many things.
Right. Directly to your door. It's great shit. Trust me. So they sent me 3 meals and I've tried them all. They sent me a salmon meal, a salmon dish, a chicken dish, and a beef dish.
It was a beef Wellington?
It was not beef Wellington.
Oh, Ramsey would be so disappointed.
No, it was some kind of, like, I forget the exact name of the dish, but it was a like steak on top of salad sort of thing. Very fresh. Like, I was impressed with all the ingredients that came with it. First of all, the recipes were really good. Like, my favorite, I think, was probably the chicken dish, which was like chicken and farro and mozzarella and like a lot of different kinds of spices. And they correctly portion everything for you, so you don't have to, like, break open a package, use a third of it, and then throw the rest away in 2 weeks, or let it sit and rot in your cabinets like I always do, which is really handy for me. It's also very fresh. Like, they just send you
a live chicken.
Yes, they send you a live chicken. And no, it's also way more convenient than that. They send you the dead chicken, pre-skinned, pre-defeathered, and it's, they send you, like, greens that look better than half of the greens I've seen in the stores. Well, they do it all with, like, a big box with a bunch of, like, ice packs in the bottom.
Oh, so they actually do. They got some kind of chilling device.
Right. So they put, like, some styrofoam at the bottom of a box with ice packs under it, and it keeps everything cool while it sits at your door while you're at work or whatever, and you come home and get it. And all of our stuff was super fresh, and it was super tasty. So I was really happy with the service. I've tried other services that send you, like, pre-cooked meals to where, it's already prepared for you. And it's not as satisfying because I kind of like to cook. So if they can send me the ingredients and I can make something in 30 minutes or less, that's always a bonus. And also, this is way, way tastier because it's not preheated stuff. You're actually cooking it.
Sounds like a good time for the old taste buds.
Okay. Is that their slogan?
Yeah.
A good time for the old taste buds.
That's for that. You can have that for free.
Yeah. So they also have a full-time employed dietitian on staff to make these things nutritionally balanced, which is pretty awesome.
I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah. So right now we're actually doing a special offer with them. If you go to HelloFresh.com, that's HelloFresh.com, and you enter the promo code TWD, you can save $35 off your first week of deliveries when you subscribe. And that's actually a pretty hefty discount, I think. So go check it out, HelloFresh.com, use promo code TWD, and enjoy some fresh and tasty food delivered right to your door.
Treat for the old taste buds.
Okay. We start off with Beverly B. She says, this show is definitely on probation, and it's not because they killed Glenn or Abraham or broke Rick, but because the entire episode appeared to be designed to torture the audience. A, by giving 20 minutes to merely catch up with where we were months ago. B, by consistently making us think someone was losing a hand. And C, by showing every single character get hit by a bat. The show has dealt with horror and cruelty for years, but this came across like they were being cruel to the audience. There's always been something vaguely unrespectable about watching this show. I'm a professional woman with children, for Pete's sake. If I forget and make a reference to The Walking Dead in The Office, I have to face the Puritans who say they could never watch this stuff, and I weekly try to explain that much of the violence is cartoonish and the love I have for the characters, and to be honest, this always felt weak. I didn't think I convinced anyone, but I didn't really care. I love the show, didn't care if other people didn't get it, but this was the first episode I was kind of embarrassed to have watched.
Wow.
So a lot of people are talking about, just the extreme gore in this episode. I have a opinion of this that has been very long in the making. What do you think about the level of gore that was in this episode?
What's the emailer's name?
Beverly B.
Beverly B. Beverly, I think you've got some cognitive dissonance about your choices of entertainment that are causing you unneeded guilt and fucking with your ability to enjoy it. That's just my personal opinion as someone who's had a lot of cognitive dissonance in my life. Fuck those people at your office. You don't have to define your enjoyment of something in the terms of their inability to deal with violence and adult situations and stuff. Yeah. So if you're embarrassed because you like this, if you're embarrassed for watching this show for a variety of reasons, I mean, that's your business and you're free to do it. But I would hate for your enjoyment to be shaped by the expectations and judgments of other people because, there's no subjective reason to feel that way. They don't have any moral superiority over you because, sure. This is something. Because, it'd be one thing, there's people to watch this for the violence. They don't feel anything. It's just, it's just an admiration of the special effects. And that's fine. I watch it and when they do stuff to me and it makes me feel something, I enjoy that. I felt sick in this episode. I felt devastated, and part of the reason I watch fiction is because I like to feel those things. So yeah,
I felt sick too, but I have a cold. So.
What's your opinion?
That's largely congruous with my take on it. I have been a horror fan for a very long time, mm-hmm. and horror is something, especially back in the day, that a lot of people didn't take seriously. A lot of people thought was both ridiculous and schlocky and ultra-violent and gratuitous and all those things. I have long since come to terms with the idea that people may hear that I love horror movies and bad horror movies at that and, form an opinion of me. Don't care because I enjoy those things.
Right.
And if you think that this is out of line, you need to go look at more horror because this is not an especially gory episode. I mean, or of The Walking Dead it is, but not an especially gory horror adaptation.
Well, there's other things in
the opening scenes of the original Dawn of the Dead. It's a dude running into a building, raiding a building, and going insane and blowing people's heads off in the projects. Just people's heads exploding in a shower of gore and blood.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things you're going to see in horror, and if you enjoy those on any level, this is not any worse than that.
Well, I do think there's a difference between that, where is yes, that's a horrific scenario, but we don't feel one thing or another about the person pulling the trigger to people's heads exploding. Whereas Glenn is struggling to say with his last conscious moments one last reassuring thing to his wife, and a tragic thing. The fact that I'll always find you, that's always been true, and now it's not.
Well, look at things like The Fly. I mean, The Fly is fucking horrifying in the same ways.
But what I'm saying is, everyone's got to draw the line. I don't like torture, what I call torture porn. I don't like Hostel. I don't like the green fucking bush or whatever, the green inferno.
Yeah.
Or I don't like that stuff that's just purely sadistic. I don't think this passes that bar because I think Negan is a far more interesting person, and he's doing these things for a particular effect. It's not just sadism for sadism's effect, but that's a purely
Right.
It's a purely
I do like that
subjective
stuff.
opinion that I have. I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you like it. It's just like that's not my kind of fun, you know?
And the people who can't distinguish between someone who enjoys watching this stuff in a fictional setting on a television screen and someone who would actually go out in real life and do this shit,
right?
They aren't. Their opinion isn't valuable.
Right.
Because there are certainly people who enjoy it, like myself, who would never do these things to real people.
Right. And there's certainly people that are turned off by this that, if the chips were down, would be fucking jackbooted Nazis shoving people in the gas chambers and ovens. So, Beverly, I would say that, like, don't let others shape your opinions. If this is the opinion that you're having and it's your genuine critical reaction, you should obviously, listen to that.
If you're disgusted by it, you don't have to watch it.
Yeah. But I would encourage you to make sure that that's your voice and not others, and also to not let, not do the same thing. Don't judge others because they do enjoy it. So, but yeah.
All right. Dan from Philly says, well, they sucked me back in, damn it. 6 months later, a week of Walking Dead nonstop on AMC, all leading up to one hell of an episode. Dark, twisted, it was everything it always should have been. Was it ridiculous to have Daryl get Glenn killed? Sure, but it worked, and everyone knew AMC wasn't killing off their moneymaker.
And I bought it. I actually think that's a genuine reaction that Daryl would have.
Yeah, he's an animal. He wouldn't be able to control himself. Mm-hmm. I hated the cliffhanger, but the bastards made up for it. The scariest part of all of this is, to me, is there's 15 more to go, and where or how do they top this? So I'm trying to include, like, the gamut here. I want people who said
totally.
They loved it, people who said they hated it, and
that's the thing. Like, I feel like I've been generous with my praise of this episode, and I'm genuine in that praise. I will say that if they don't fuck around, this could be a very memorable stretch of 16 episodes.
Right.
If they do fuck around, then it can be another hit and miss, up and down, uneven season, and we will see what they do. Like, are they going to have
next episode? Sasha and Maggie walk to the hilltop.
If they tell this Negan plot full throttle and they don't stop and they don't have diversions, they don't they're going to do this very special episode of Negan as a child for 4 episodes. Or if Morgan and Carol don't traipse through the woods debating morality.
The big problem.
Yeah. Also, how does this change? Because how does this change Carol? Carol's a one-man army. Like, if Rick unleashes her,
she's just gonna Tasmanian devil.
Like she's gonna be Achilles.
Well, she's out on her own. I mean, Morgan and her just, I don't know what the hell they're doing, but they're not in Alexandria anymore. Sure. So. Yeah, he'd have to find her.
Like I said, this could be an all-time classic season. This could be the exact kind of season that The Walking Dead needs. That Scott Gimple can announce that I am here and I'm taking this thing to where its rightful place in the TV pantheon is going to be. Or it could be more of the same. So, it's both of those possibilities are as always on the table at this show.
Well, we heard the good. Let's hear the bad. Mitch from South Carolina says, what a bummer. What a wasted opportunity. Can you imagine last season's finale if they just showed the deaths and started with the grief to begin the season? Amazing acting, amazing shots, hell, even direction. No complaints about the actual deaths, just ruined by Gimple Kirkman. Don't even get me started on the torture porn with the axe and all the disrespectful trolling of the comic fans. I'm out. Thank God for Westworld. So a lot of people, both on the internet and in our feedback, proclaiming they're out. They're done with the show.
Wow. It's interesting because I don't, ever since I've turned this mailbag over to you, it's been nice because my opinion, I don't know what other people are going to say. I would have guessed that the by far majority reaction was going to be, I'm reinvested. Yes, it's a bummer. Yes, they should have done things this way. They should have done things that way. But I feel like I am kind of, this is why I watch The Walking Dead. And this is kind of like the best, the best of The Walking Dead can be. And of course, it's directed by Greg Nicotero and written by the Gimple. This is the giants of the field.
I was skeptical that Nicotero actually directed this one when I saw that dawn was breaking. I thought maybe he would just skip.
That's where the fog came from. It rained, dawn broke, the sun heated up the ground, the sun went back, it's a reversed orbit. So give me a breakdown percentage-wise, fan reaction, just judging by our mailbag.
It was pretty split, I'd say. I thought it was maybe 60-40 positive, but
really,
but I think a lot of people made up their mind last season.
And they were kind of watching this episode arms crossed, like win me back over.
Right.
I'm actually more
and nothing would have done that for them.
Yeah, I mean, people say that all the time, but I'm always interested in, like, whether they really mean that, because
Well, there are some people who probably thought that and said that, and then they'll continue to watch anyway.
I guess that's fair too.
I view the audience as very fragmented, and every time they break off a fragment, they lose audience share on this show.
And also, maybe we're representing, because I guess I've had a break with this show before, where I just can't take it that serious anymore.
Right.
And they need a full 16 episode of balls to the wall execution at a very high level to get me back to where I could be disappointed. But so maybe some of these people are just they've been hanging on, and this is now the breaking point, and they're still going to keep watching the show, but maybe more like we do. I don't know.
Yeah,
because it's confusing to me why this would be the one of all the missteps. Why is this the one that man? I just felt like it gave us a lot of red meat.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah,
lots of red twitching, gross piles of meat.
Yeah. David says, though I'm impressed the show finally killed someone of real importance, and he says he was yelling at his screen for only killing Abraham, and then they got him good. My question is more about the universe as a whole. In this episode, we had a massive group of people screaming, crying, talking, guts being splattered all over the ground, and not a single walker attacked this buffet of flesh and brains. We also had them drive an RV into the middle of a horde of walkers with zero issues. I'm in the middle of rewatching from the start, and it is clear the walkers have become increasingly weaker. In the first season, walkers not only run and run fast, but they attempt to turn doorknobs and even use rocks to break glass doors. I know in later seasons, cars, trucks have broken down by just running over too many walkers as well. So, my question is, why did the walkers become so pathetic? Is this the show's way of telling the audience that the walkers are actually fading away, or that the longer they stay dead, the more human traits they forget, or am I giving this show too much credit? This is a perennial question, right?
So I think it's both. I think number one, all those rules in the first season were Darabont things, and they had the zombie Bible, and they intended to kind of stick to that, and then that zombie Bible got thrown out with Darabont.
Yep.
Clean out your fucking office and take that fucking Bible with you. On the other hand, I do think this is something in the comics too, that yes, these zombies, why their rotting is slowed and retarded from the fact that they've got whatever this virus. It's not as aggressive as you would expect a decomposing corpse to be.
Right.
3 years in the heat of Georgia or whatever, the swamp-like conditions of DC. Mm-hmm. It's still taking its toll, and the zombies are increasingly not the threat that they used to be.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Mark C. says, sorry, I'm going to be that guy. They should have totally ended Season 6 at Suck My Nuts. It would have given us a false sense of security and would have given more of a punch to Glenn's death. So he's basically saying, kill Abraham in the finale, kill Glenn in the premiere.
Well, so that's interesting, because, I think optimally they should have just ended with this episode and maybe shortened up a lot of the Morgan crap that they were pulling.
Right.
But that would have been interesting, because if they'd ended on Abraham's death, we wouldn't have had the meta discussion of, oh my God, they're dicking around with us and they're stretching things out, and then they could have opened with Glenn's death, and we would have got kind of almost the best of both worlds. I don't know, because that certainly no one would be looking for another death.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if that'd work. Like I said, in a perfect world, we would have ended at the end of this episode, and then everybody's jazzed about, because that's the real mystery, is how is Rick going to overcome this? Is Rick going to overcome this?
Yeah.
And not just Rick. This is no longer just Rick's problem. This is affecting a lot of people.
One last point from Mark C. He says, also, poor Enid is still trapped in the closet. 6 months later.
Well, also, what is Tara going to do when she gets back?
Oh, my God. Right. I forgot Denise is dead and she doesn't know yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that time in Community when Donald Glover went to go get pizza and he comes back and his apartment's on fire. It's that gif,
That's pretty, yeah.
That's going to be a hell of a shoe to drop. There's 4 or 5 shoes that have dropped, and people don't have that many feet. So.
Yeah, because, she had an attachment to Glenn. Glenn's the one that brought her in, right?
Yeah.
To this group and said, hey, we accept you. Even though you were part of the governor's crew, we're going to take you in.
Yeah.
So she's got the double whammy coming when she gets back.
Yeah, no, totally.
Ben from London, Ontario, not UK.
Right.
Says, I actually thought it was a good episode. A little stalling at first, that's to be expected, but in the end they did a really good job setting Negan up as someone to be feared. I thought one of either Carl or Rick was losing their arm for sure. Here's the problem with the show, and they've done this for the last 2, possibly 3 finales and mid-season finales. They're always one episode off. The episode 1s and 9s are always phenomenal, and then they're downhill from there, showing the fallout. The 1s should be 16s, and the 9s should be 8s. Ends the season off with a bang, and then build it back up for a finale. Not sure why they're not doing this. They're like the reverse Game of Thrones right now.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, and that's a great way to articulate it.
Just shift everything one episode, right?
Right, and also I think we're letting them off easy too, because the level of intensity throughout the mid part of the season should be a constantly ratcheting up tension. It shouldn't all just be bang finales. It should always be, ideally, something that really grips you and hooks you, and some mystery and some character moments and some intrigue and some action that slowly keeps increasing until you hit these resolutions of the finales. But yeah, like,
everybody needs to take a page out of Breaking Bad's book. It's pedal to the metal. It's constant build up to a season finale that blows your mind.
I mean, it's not constant. I remember podcasts, and there was 2 or 3 episode stretches where there was lulls to build that tension.
Right,
but also not.
But that's also like surfacing characters and getting them into the place where they need to be for that final moment. Right?
Yes.
It's not like they're out in the woods just rehashing things that they've talked about for 3 seasons in a row now.
Right.
So, I don't know. Cheryl from Steeler Nation. I don't know what Steeler Nation is, but whatever.
It's Pittsburgh, but it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between a nation and a metropolitan area.
Okay. Hey, guys, I'll keep this short since you probably get a metric ass ton of feedback for the season premiere. Have a question for you. Never mind the fact that we're talking about a show where people are constantly getting ripped apart and eaten alive by zombies. Kids are murdering kids, and a man is forced to watch cannibals eat his leg. But a bat to the head is too much. What do you think of all the people who are rage quitting over the violent content of the first episode?
I think this is a slightly different question from before, in that, I mean, I can't throw too many stones because I live in a glass house, which was the Americans. Like,
right.
I had seen a whole bunch of ethically and morally questionable shit, and a guy seducing a 13-year-old is where I tapped out. Now,
and never fucking that 13-year-old, might I add.
Well, I mean, but dangling, it's kind of like, them dangling the possibility that he might fuck a 13-year-old is gross to me.
Haven't they done that in The Walking Dead? Didn't somebody threaten to fuck Carl?
It wasn't the hero. It wasn't the hero. It wasn't Daryl debating whether it was a good idea or whether he should do it for the good of the team.
We're not sure he hasn't debated that.
So I'm saying I'm not defending that, because this is and people that watched Americans weren't monsters and weren't child predators or weren't being. I mean, I'm not trying to say that. On the other hand, like, so that was a difference of kind. Mm-hmm. Like Philip seducing, Swedish ambassadors was different than him seducing with the aid of drugs a 13-year-old a girl.
Sure. With the aid of music, by the way.
I thought it was dry. Didn't he get her high too?
He did it mostly with music.
I don't know. Just a guy showing up with some fucking Miller High Life and a blunt. And
I think it was White Lines
Floyd.
that sealed the deal. I really do.
But anyway, I think that was a difference of kind, not degree. This seems like a difference of degree. Like, we did see guys get their heads bashed in with bats and slit their throats like cattle. But I also think that people also like to rationalize their decisions. Like, I don't think any person that didn't have their foot already out of the door on this show would say that. I mean, the human condition's vast. There's probably some people, but I think a lot of this is just people wanting an excuse to quit the weekly ritual of watching a show. They're invested. They spend a lot of time. They don't want to feel like this is some arbitrary knee-jerk reaction, and it probably is. So they're like, well, this is just a shocking level of violence that I wasn't prepared to watch.
And there are probably some people who legitimately, like, this was the line for them.
Yeah.
And that's fine, too, You
know what the line AMC found is that they wouldn't cross?
What?
The line was on Carl's arm.
Oh, God.
They'll go right up to it, but they won't cross that line with an axe.
There's a really great Duran Duran joke in here somewhere. callback, but I can't find it.
Okay.
I can't find it.
I
so we're
couldn't
going
help
on
ya.
to Shelby, who says, so now that we know that it is Abraham that got the bat first, two things. If the point of view in the finale was Abraham, then why don't we hear him tell Negan to suck his balls in the finale?
Damn good question.
It's because they played fast and loose and they were trying to trick us.
I don't think they had. I don't think they decided. There was some
Right.
kind of probably AMC had to sign off in triplicate on whoever they killed, and they didn't have that done.
Right. Okay, second question. What was with the continuous point of view in the van in the finale when Abraham was never actually in the van? Why would you spend a whole episode insinuating that a person in the van gets the bat first when they clearly don't?
Wait, why? I guess I don't. That was a theory that I never really signed off on.
Okay, I was going to see how much you remembered about this, because I vaguely remember people talking about the POV in the van.
I do too, and I thought I remember saying that I don't really agree with that.
Right.
And I thought that's
true.
dumb. I mean, some of these things are like every once in a while the show tries to play the big boy camera tricks and POVs that it's not quite ready for, and I think that might have been one of the cases. But I never found that very persuasive.
Okay. Phil in Indy says he should have just watched Westworld instead. As a casual viewer who didn't rewatch any episodes leading up to the premiere, I felt like there was a real lack of build-up and impact to the deaths of Glenn and Abraham. I'm right there with you, Phil and Indy. They didn't hit me the way I think they would have in the finale. The episode throws me right into what is supposed to be one of the biggest moments of the series, but after several months of off and on interaction between these characters and their loved ones before they go, I'm not feeling the weight of the moment like I should. It's like I forget why I should care.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot argue with that.
They did the best they could coming back, like building it up. I thought they almost pulled it off for me, just maybe slightly damper than it would have been had it happened last season.
And I don't know, maybe I found it easier to put myself in the point of view of someone who's seeing a loved one just be horrifically mangled, and like kind of like the weird courage that both Abraham and Glenn showed in their final moments. And just how, like, what a horrible mockery it was. Like, Glenn trying to do this heroic, noble thing and touching thing for his wife, and with his eye bulging out and his skull fractured. Like, it's
just don't bother, man. You're just scarring her more.
But that's part of the tragedy. I mean, it's just horrible. It's horrific in every kind of way. And I guess that's kind of why I like to watch The Walking Dead. It's at its best, it makes us confront that thing, and somehow at the end of the day, the good guys should win. They should find a way to win. So yeah, like I don't know why it worked for me, and I'm not starting to feel like I'm doing a bad job of being the curmudgeon that I'm supposed to be for this show. Like I'm going to once again rope it up the audience. Like, you're not going to get what you want from me.
It's that break you had, right? That we talked about. I mean, we're not taking the show quite as seriously because it has shown us that it doesn't want to be taken quite that seriously, and so we give it a little more latitude. We don't feel like we're going to be as critical of it because it's not what it's for.
Right.
Or at least I feel that way. Like I just more enjoy it for the sake of watching it, and it's well within my genres that I like.
Right.
So for me it still hits most of the time, and I'll keep watching
it. That's the thing. Like, I guess I haven't. Maybe that's the difference, is that I laugh and enjoy the show when it falls on its face, but it also can surprise me. It's like a toddler.
Right. Okay.
Every once in a while they'll trip and fall, and sometimes they cry. They cry, and it's like, oh, that's okay, buddy. Pick yourself back up. And then every once in a while they'll say, they'll give you a hug and make you feel good, or totally surprise you at what they say. But yeah, The Walking Dead is like a 2-year-old toddler.
Yeah.
At this point.
Jeremy L. from Pennsylvania says, hey guys, if you remember a while back, Robert Kirkman was on Chris Hardwick's talk show and basically flat out said that Glenn would not be killed by the bat. Clearly this is not the case. In retrospect, how does this make you guys feel about the show or Kirkman himself? This is a good time to talk about Kirkman's trolling.
Yeah, we've talked about this many, many times. Like, what Kirkman does with his audience in the mailbag and on interviews, I find unconscionable, and I could never, ever, ever do it for people that have, given me millions upon millions of dollars in such a high profile. Like, it's definitely my character to troll and to be a practical jokester, but it's also, I guess, I have too much feeling of gratitude to it's sometimes funny to think about, but something you don't actually do.
Right.
The fact that he does, I find kind of horrifying, and like that's a reason to stop watching the show and stop giving him money right there.
Yeah, I have long since stopped listening to what Kirkman says about anything because he, I take him seriously. I guess back in the day when he said the biggest mistake he made was to cut off Rick's hand, but as of late, it's the game of fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, 100 times, whatever. Can't get fooled again.
I also think it's a way to give the fans what they say they want, but also give the fans what they probably need. Like, they want people to give them answers, and they don't expect to get straightforward answers, so he gives them what seems like a straightforward answer. And spoil, like, it's like, that's always dumb. Like, you get these stars on television shows, and the host always get this impish look on their face, like, oh, can you tell us what happens next? Like, just once I would love for Kit Harington to be like, fucking yeah, Daenerys actually wins. She sits on the Iron Throne. And just a hush fall over the crowd, and everybody gets super bummed out. It's like, well, that's what you wanted, isn't it?
Right.
And there's a little bit about that I kind of admire, that he's doing this, throwing it's like this flack. It's like it's like shooting flares and bits of tinfoil at your ass to throw off a homing missile.
Right.
Like, he's putting so much bullshit out there that how do you know what's real and what's not? Having said that,
this is the reason that I pay more attention to the fan communities and stuff, and the actual like independent spoilers that come out than what any actor or producer or director has to say about the show. Unless I feel like they're being honest to me, because none of it's all a smokescreen to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, until you get past an episode, something has been aired, and people are talking about it in retrospect, they're never going to be able to be honest with you. And so it's pointless to listen to any of this. I don't watch The Talking Dead anymore. I don't read AMC's newsletters that I get sent.
I wish I had watched The Talking Dead last night, because it sounded like, I'm going to try to find some way to watch it, because it did seem they had like the whole damn cast on, and everyone's talking about it like it was a lot of fun. Not because I give a shit about what they're going to have to say, but just I kind of get a kick out of like how they interact with each other.
Right.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. Like,
but the fans are out there speculating and pulling pieces out of the episode, like conclusive proofs of things, and then you get spoilers leaked, and those are the things I pay attention to.
I don't even like watching the next week's on, because I've just learned from years of doing this is that their job is not to inform you. Their job is to treat you like a mushroom, to keep you in the dark and feed you a lot of bullshit, and keep you addicted to this information, and be constantly thinking about the show.
Yeah,
I already constantly think about the show for without their involvement and their misdirection.
Yeah. All right, Olivia says, I'm one of the fans who was disappointed with the finale, and I felt cheated on an emotional character death by AMC with their social media #WhoIsIt, and how they exclaimed how great it would be to discuss it over the break. I felt like last night's premiere...
And no one did. I'm subscribed to all the forums, and no, that was not like
they did for like 2 days.
But it's mostly bitching about how stupid it was and how transparent the manipulation is. So fucking mission accomplished.
I felt like last night's premiere was all shock value, and it failed. As a comic reader, I remember reading issue 100, experiencing Lucille beating panel by panel. I was nervous and uneasy as we went to each character, realizing we were about to lose a great character. When Negan landed on Glenn, it wrecked my shit. I cried. I had to stop reading when Glenn tried to save Maggie while Negan taunted him about his eye being popped out, being gross as shit. I was overwhelmed with the idea of a pregnant woman watching her husband call out to her one last time as he was dying. Last night, I didn't feel that way at all, which is saying something since I'm 37 weeks pregnant and will cry at almost anything these days.
Holy moly.
I cried an hour prior to the episode because my husband hung up our son's mobile in his crib. I cried the other week watching the new Jungle Book movie.
Aaron, more emotional than a 37-year-old pregnant woman. Like, what's wrong with me?
When Abe took his first hit and told Negan to suck my nuts, I laughed like I'm sure most did. Then nothing. I didn't cry, nor was I saddened by his death, or Sasha's, or Rosita's loss. I knew AMC blew it with me when Glenn was beaten to death, and they kept showing Daryl's reaction more than Maggie. I was a perfect demographic for his death, a pregnant wife to really affect emotionally, and they failed. All I could focus on them is showing Daryl, and I knew they dropped the ball. I have this feeling we're going to spend more time on Daryl's man pain and guilt over his actions than Maggie's loss of her husband and father of her child. Well, I'm intrigued by the possible exploration of this, or of how this will affect Maggie and Daryl's relationship in the future. So what do you think about that? Is there any chance that Maggie's grief might get lost in the Daryl fallout?
Of course. Ideally, they should do justice to both.
Yeah.
But I've seen it happen before where, Maggie's grief over her sister was completely overshadowed about whatever up their ass thing that she had with Glenn and
Daryl.
And Daryl's, as you said,
Daryl's a constant spotlight stealer.
Right. I'm just really bummed out that they fucked this up so bad that so many people can't enjoy it.
Right.
It's so sad to me, and it's such a waste of
And
potential.
it was such an easy thing to get right.
Yep.
Such an easy thing.
Yep, and the fact that they sat and, I don't know what this is. That's the thing I'll never know, whether this was something the AMC demanded and interfered with, or this is something in the writer's room. They're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be awesome. But, just the fact that, nobody brought up that, oh, man, think about, what if we did it this way, though? Think about the genuine emotion, you're talking about if it works, getting the cheap heat versus actually tugging on people's heartstrings and making them feel devastated, and, which is better. And I'm just, oh, man, I'm really bummed that this is actually worse than I was expecting.
Well, this cliffhanger brings up kind of a problem in general, I feel, with cliffhangers, is that cliffhangers are only ever designed to bring your current audience back.
Uh-huh.
And that's a very strange thing to me when a show ostensibly wants to keep growing, right? If you can get people to say, oh my God, last season of that show was so good.
Or so nuts.
Or
so
nuts
devastating.
That they're going to tell their friends about it and say, you gotta check this out. Nobody can go to their friends and say, They've got a real big question at the end. Who's going to die? Because they don't care about
is it going to be Abraham or Glenn? They're like, who?
They don't know. That's only ever designed to bring current viewers back, not grow your audience. And I don't get it.
Nope. I always said that cliffhangers are the cheap heat, and also there's effective cliffhangers and ineffective cliffhangers, and that finale earlier this year failed on both counts. But man, like I said, I really underestimated how bad it would be, because me sitting in my living room it did get me, and I thought there'd be a lot of Walking Dead's earned another pass, but whew.
All right, Barry C from the UK says, surely Rick saying I'm not going to kill you. It's easy to lose this fact in the episode because of the time jumps, but he says, surely Rick saying, I'm going to kill you right after what happened when Daryl stepped out of line is the stupidest and most negligent thing he has done as a leader, yeah? He was lucky Negan thought it was so pathetic under the circumstances he didn't have to kill anyone else. So, Daryl jumps up and, he slugs Negan, but Rick tells him, I'm going to kill you. Does he make good on the threat that he made? If anybody steps out of line, I'm going to keep killing?
For one thing, this was past that everybody already beat to death, and he got right in his face and was looking for a reaction. But I don't know. To me, this email, this is pretending the episode didn't happen, because the whole episode was precisely about how Negan was going to break Rick and how he's going to make him kowtow and eventually do it. And if
but if you're Rick in that moment, and you don't have the benefit of foresight into this episode, you've got to take Negan seriously, and if you step out of line, he's going to keep killing people.
Do you think that Negan is right in his psychological analysis of Rick?
It doesn't matter, because Rick is the question here.
Right, but I'm
what's
saying
going through Rick's head?
If Rick is kind of I think that some of what Negan said about Rick being intoxicated with power and being addicted to the alpha dog persona and all that stuff was pretty true.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Negan beating Rick down or Rick stepping back up to Negan and saying that this isn't over. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to call Negan's bluff. Maybe he wasn't thinking. I felt like it was within Rick's character to still cling to this bravado that's worked so well for him, and this unshakable feeling that they can't lose. So I guess. I don't know. It never even occurred to me to criticize the fact that Rick would come and say, "I'm going to kill you," because also he's counting
right, but it feels like a mistake as someone who just killed more people for someone stepping out of line. Just did exactly what he said he was going to do. Rick is risking having that happen again by stepping out of line once again.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is a mistake, but I also think it's a mistake within Rick's character, I guess.
Certainly, yeah.
Like this, like that's what I'm saying. Like I guess, I harp on people making a lot of mistakes and whatnot, but like there's out of character mistakes and there's in character mistakes.
Okay.
Like Walter White continuing to cook meth after he had $100 million in a storage shed was a stupid mistake.
Right.
And not justifiable, but it's also well within his character. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jeremy from Abu Dhabi says, love your podcast. Continue to listen weekly. However, I am done watching The Walking Dead. Season 7 premiere was disgusting and shameful and unequivocally horrible writing.
Wow.
It seemed the producers were trying to make up for 4 seasons of garbage script writing by giving fans the biggest oh shit moment they could create.
I think that's accurate. I don't know why you describe it as awful though. Like, were they supposed to just be like, well, we'll just shit the bed. You guys are expecting us to shit the bed, so we'll just shit the bed.
Right.
Like, talking about damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right. Is this what you want?
Right.
Point to it.
Right. Like a football team's down 40 to nothing in the fourth quarter. Like, do you take the snap or you just piss on the ball?
Yeah.
No one's expecting them to piss on the ball. I mean, like maybe it's futile, but don't you want them to hike the ball? And I don't know.
Yeah, that was probably the, I guess, most upset email I got. Just giving you the extremes. Joe from New York. The point is moot for now as he's locked up like a caged animal. But Daryl is absolutely the reason for Glenn's death. We talked a little bit about this. His recklessness has become a huge liability for the entire group. It was Daryl running off into the woods alone, the same woods where he last saw a half dozen armed saviors that got Glenn, Michonne, and Rosita captured and put in that lineup. His asinine defiance in front of Negan and Lucille was really just Glenn's killing blow. You can like the character and his badassness, but you cannot deny the show is using his stupidity to move the plot. He acts selfishly and has thus far faced no tangible consequences except for blame, and fans want to absolve him of even that. It'll be interesting to see how and if this massive karmic buildup is paid off at Negan's compound.
I'm not yes, that last part I fully agree that I'm not absolving Daryl of shit. I'm just saying that like we've had seasons of them pulling their ass out of fire by ripping throats out with teeth and biting nuts with teeth and doing all this other improbable stuff and still winning because that's what they do. You know, like they're getting punished for using a successful playbook. And that's true. This is the plot. You are fully appreciating the plot. This is actually, for once, The Walking Dead is actually, that's the thing I think is funny, is that people are like accusing them of doing these stupid things, but at least this is the one time that I feel like it's actually part of the plot. And I don't know, maybe because I've certainly had this accusation lobbied against me the other direction, and I've said and middle fingers to the differing opinion. So maybe this is my comeuppance, but I feel like this is the one thing where like all of this stupidity is actually intentional, and you're supposed to think like what a Greek tragedy this all is, that Rick has finally run to the end of his rope, and what is he going to do? Yeah. And that's what goes for Daryl. I mean, down the line, Maggie, all that, there's going to be a lot of recrimination and a lot of this was your fault and this is my fault, and how, like buckle up, because that's what's coming. Yep.
So Nathan P., final email, has a couple things to say. So first of all, you guys probably need a new iTunes podcast logo because I doubt Rick and Carl are dying before the end of the show. You should make it a contest or something. So if people don't know, what we do with our show logo is every time one of the original cast members from some promo shot that I pulled back in season 1 dies, we gray them out in the logo so that only the characters who are still living are in color. As of this episode, that consists only of Rick and Carl.
Carol's not in that?
No. Okay. Everyone else in that picture is dead.
All right.
So I did go ahead and modify the logo. So you are seeing the new logo with Glenn grayed out. It's going to be a while, I think. And it had been a few seasons since I had to gray anybody else out, but it'll be a long time before I gray one of the two.
I guess we haven't discussed this yet. Do we... And this is the final email, so it's time to do it. Don't they get any credit for killing some OG cast and some fairly important, like 2 of them?
Yeah. I mean, it sucks because the dumpster fire Glenn stuff in some ways spoiled this. In some ways, I think it was lessened by having that really just big fiasco.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it still works. It's still powerful. You
but it
still
didn't,
want
though.
Glenn around.
I felt like that. I always think that I'm going to be the toughest audience in the room, but clearly I'm not. I'm a softie compared to a lot of these people writing in, and that's kind of shocking to me that I'm not the most difficult to please fan in the room. Maybe that's the new normal now.
I feel like a lot of our podcasts have selected the audience that maybe wants to pick on the show a little bit more than the average fan. So maybe we're seeing a biased sampling of Walking Dead fans. I'm sure there are many, many people out there who appreciated this much more than our particular.
But it does
fans
seem like
did.
Back when I was doing feedback anyway, that that's not even true. By the end of last season, I felt like our takes and like what Reddit was thinking and like what the forums were thinking and some of the other show communities were thinking were kind of 1-to-1. And like that, the big mishandling of the dumpster fiasco and the thing had kind of all brought. We are all kind of like hate watching The Walking Dead. Because when I got and I read, because I'm not reading the feedback now because you're doing that. But when I was reading Reddit, like it seemed like near universal acclaim with the asterisks of everyone saying, as good as this was, it would have been that much better had they not fucked up the end of last season.
Right.
And to hear people not even giving them that much credit, I guess, is kind of surprising to me.
Okay.
But and also, it's like maybe they're just, I don't know, because like if they, if next week this is going to be a 2-episode arc of Carol and Morgan walking through the woods and like that stuff needs to happen, but like if it's just all about that and we go away from this reaction, I'm going to be right back to like, oh my God, they're back to squandering opportunities. So
right.
Yeah, maybe I'm being, I don't know. I just felt like maybe I was more willing to be pleased because I was afraid to just go in with a totally negative reaction. But man, I feel like I'm really out of touch with what people are thinking after this feedback session.
Well, I mean, Nathan didn't even like Jeffrey Dean Morgan's monologuing, so
really,
yeah, he might have been impossible to please. He says we've waited this long for Negan to show up, and now we just want him to shut up. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the best part of the episode.
I thought he was magnetic.
Yeah,
he's terrifying and yet somehow cool. And
here's some good stuff, and I feel like this is universally praised. A praised section of the episode. He says that said, I felt more attached to Carl's arm than with either of their deaths. That was tense, if not slightly redundant. I would have thought Rick might have felt a little broken after losing his best friend and moral compass, but alas, it's due to his son that he submits. I think I was even more attached to Carl's arm than Carl was. yeah, I'm with you. That was by far the most effective part of this episode.
Also, Carl continuing to be a badass. Like, do it, Dad.
Right.
Like, he was ready.
Right, he understands the situation they're in.
Yep, he was ready to be salamified.
Yeah. So a couple of comments on the two deaths. R.I.P. Abraham, I guess, even though in total he's only scared his family to their deaths using a can of beans, rescued Eugene, a shitbird, helped Glenn find Maggie even though he didn't want to, dumped Rosita in the worst way possible, flirted with Sasha right in front of Rosita, and said a few lines and done a few crazy stunts. You will not be missed. R.I.P. Glenn, who has, and I shortened this list, it's still pretty long, admittedly saved Rick, so that's a plus, fell in love with Maggie and become useless both with and without her, agreed to being used as well bait, got captured alongside Maggie, needing rescuing from the governor, abandoned everyone for revenge right before the prison was attacked for the first time around, talked about abandoning everyone in early season 4 just for Maggie. That includes abandoning Rick, who helped him on multiple occasions, got sick and once again had his life in danger, abandoned the death bus, led a fist bumper into the group, walked...
That's there's lots of
true horror.
A lot of really horrific crimes. The well bait being chief among them.
Walked into a walker-infested tunnel because Maggie led his team right into Cannibal City, took shitbird Nicholas under his wing, dumpster gate, went off on the Get Daryl Back group despite knowingly leaving his pregnant wife back at home, got captured by the Saviors, and also getting Maggie knocked up and deciding to start a family while there is still danger in every direction. Glenn, you will not be missed. So Nathan, laying down some harsh truths on both Abraham and Glenn. I feel like he might his selection of events might be a little biased toward throwing shade, but I like it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, what I said up front is, like, I imagine, like, if this was season 6 and they were doing this and not season 7, because I feel like there's about a year, maybe a year and a half's worth of just bullshit.
Oh, a year of prison for sure. Yeah.
And like, if we'd have been gotten there a little bit quicker, and if there hadn't been so many missteps and so many fan jerk moments, boy, man, this show could have been so good. So good. And the fact that it's still capable of at least moving this viewer is still kind of incredible, I think.
All right, well, that's it. If you want to,
I have some spoiler things I want to talk about. Do we have any spoiler emails?
Yeah, we got one spoiler email I could do.
Okay.
If you want to get in touch with us and send your feedback in, you can do so at Walking Dead or Watching Dead at baldmove.com, either one.
Also, if you're bailing on the show, join us on Westworld. We're doing a podcast called Watching Westworld. You can find it on iTunes and on baldmove.com. And it's an awesome show. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great. So unequivocal recommendation. If you're about to bail and you want something to watch on Sunday nights, join us on Watching Westworld.
Yep, or you can go to the forums and talk to us at forums.baldmove.com. We're going to do some spoilers, but we're going to play a little music first. So.
Also, the other thing is we will be back to our full schedule next week. Yeah. We will be doing a live watch on Sunday night. I'm kind of glad we didn't do this one because it would have been a tough one to, like, crack jokes on. And
right.
At least for me. Next week we'll be back. We'll be back for our live watch. So at 9:00 Eastern time, we will be simultaneously watching the show, and you can use our. It's hard to explain live watch technology if you're a Club Bald Move member to watch along with us, and it's kind of like, imagine it's like live Mystery Science Theater 3000,
right?
And you won't go too far wrong.
All right, well, join us for that stuff. If you want spoilers, stay till after the music. If not, we will see you next week. And until then, I'm Jim.
I'm Aaron. See ya.
And we're back with the spoiler section. You got a couple things you want to talk about first?
Yeah, so Rick saying, "I'm going to kill you." I know that one of the last emailers really kind of shit on that, but I think that is crucial to committing to the arc that eventually happens after All Out War and Negan is captured. Rick decides not to kill him, but actually does the Morgan-esque, make him a prisoner.
Okay.
And that is a huge swing in his character arc, which I think is important. And also it sets up a lot of other really creepy possibilities with... and I wonder also, too, because one of the cornerstones of this plot in the comics was that Carl gets kind of disgusted with his father because he thinks his father's turned craven. Because Rick really commits to the lulling Negan into a false sense of complacency, and Carl takes it upon himself that he's going to go to Negan's compound and get revenge, and which kind of impresses Negan with the boy, and they continue to have this really weird Hannibal Lecter Agent Starling relationship where Carl sneaks down to the prison and talks to the increasingly bearded and long-haired and Manson-like Negan about the nature of the world and humanity, and those things are really super interesting, and I think Chandler Riggs is rounding into a character that's going to make that stuff really work. I also thought, again, my remembers of the comic book arc are a bit hazy, but I remember Maggie almost immediately blaming Rick for getting her husband killed. Because Maggie wasn't the godfather in this was something that Rick it was Rick and his balls that got them into the situation. And I actually find it a lot more interesting that Maggie was feeling responsible on multiple levels. And I think that's the one thing that they, some of this stuff, some of these character alterations they've done actually have suited the character and make it more interesting. So I like the fact that Maggie was left. I don't know that they'll get around to her blaming Rick again, but her initial reaction of, being angry and defiant and then frustrated and then, guilty. Like, all those things were really interesting, and I thought they were kind of smart, natural fallout from what they've done to the comic book plotline. And I'm so glad that they remembered that, because it's kind of like The Walking Dead to go ahead and change her arc and then still have her be pissed off at Rick. When she was stumbling over towards him, I thought she was going to punch him.
Right.
And I'm like, well, what the fuck, Maggie? But they actually made these changes and rolled them back into her character. So I'm glad we saw that. What feedback do we got?
Yeah, we just got one email. I wasn't going to do a whole spoiler section for it, but now that we're in it, Ryan in KC says, do you think Daryl being taken by Negan will help lead to Dwight's face turn, supposing they even do it?
Har har.
Or does this seal the deal that this isn't going to happen and will somehow be remixed?
I actually think it's more interesting because, they've set Dwight and Daryl up to be these big nemesis. Of course, Daryl doesn't even exist in the comic books. And I always thought it was one of the things I thought was pretty, and again, I haven't read the arc for a while, but I always thought it was a little hazy, Dwight's motivation for turning against Negan. And I thought maybe one of the things in the comics we were supposed to understand is that it was kind of a leap of faith to, trust that Dwight was not a turncoat, because we almost got, we really only got stuff from his POV, and Rick kind of trusted that blindly. I think that having Daryl over there... I'm
just going to keep saying, we ain't them. It's not going to happen, and Dwight's going to go, eventually, yeah, you're right.
We ain't them. I think that having Daryl there as an inside man to kind of witness the fractures within the cult of personality that Negan has brought is going to be interesting, and it's going to make Rick seem less like desperate gamble and more like... right on, okay, this is going to seem more rooted in actually intelligence and less of a leap of faith. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see, Daryl's kind of going through this process of soul searching. I think it's going to be interesting to see what becomes of his relationship with Dwight, because Dwight kind of owes him. And also, I forget Dwight's wife or girlfriend, Sherry or Terry or whatever,
yeah.
That's Negan's essentially got a harem of wives that he just claims and takes over, and that's if they go from the comics, the reason that Dwight's face got burnt is because he had trouble accepting that arrangement.
Right.
So that stuff is all set up to be kind of interesting.
Okay.
And I think maybe an improvement over the source material.
Cool. Well, I'm interested in this next arc. From everything you've described.
And I just hope they don't shit the bed, because it'd be so easy for them to. All they got to do is resist their worst impulses and tell the goddamn story. And don't. You can have, like Scott Gimple needs to learn, what people have been doing in episodic television forever, which is balancing an A, B, and C plot.
Right.
And he cannot fucking spin 2 episodes with Morgan and Carol at the expense of all this shit. You just can't do it, man. The fucking jury is in on that. It doesn't work. So you need to be able to advance what's going on. You got to figure out what's going on with Fist Bump and Heath. You got to figure out what's going on with Morgan and Carol. You got to continue to develop the plot with Alexandria and Rick
and Maggie and Sasha.
You've got to be able to do that. You cannot fucking focus on everyone, because it's going to be a complete shit show if you do. And it sounds like that you're way worse with the fan community than I expected. So
right.
It's going to be these next few weeks are going to be crucial to see if they can learn those lessons, or if they're going to stubbornly continue to cling to the storytelling devices that have got them in so much trouble.
We'll see. We'll see next week.
Yep. See you then.